Check, check. Check, check. Cool.
I like Google Drive. I don't dislike it, but we have the Office 365, right? So that there's the OneDrive, so yeah, you know. And then what? I use a lot more outside than the other.
What's up? No. One second, I'll be right there.
Olivia had her first prom last night. It was so cute.
Oh, I think this is a different one.
Yeah, it is a different one. Because it's not the same.
Oh, that's what
I'm
it
gonna
was.
have to
'Cause
cord
now
in,
it's
aren't I?
like
Probably.
there's something happening.
Hey, Jody, where's your dongle? Dongle me, please. Dongle me, please. Is that the champion?
No, it's working. I'm gonna try it still, because
In a church,
I'd like to.
Because Jeremy Riddle goes to that church. They just wanted to go.
Display.
Yeah.
Not you?
I'm here. Who would do all the sofas, chairs, and scamping cups if not for me?
Yeah, this one doesn't
We need a
mirror.
good daddy.
I have another cable. Okay, that one
That's
works
it.
as well.
Every Sunday from 8 to 12.
Service hours I get.
It's crazy.
I know, right?
Thank you.
Really?
I have like in scouts. I'm only
Let's
like
see.
third rank and I have over 40 service hours.
That's a lot.
Not like I clock them. I should clock them more. 'Cause
You going for tenderfoot? Is that right?
first class.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
You're good. Thank you.
2 different classes.
Where's Laura?
Even better.
Are you guys doing Orange County or no?
Huntington Beach.
Yeah, Orange
Probably,
County.
I think so.
Huntington Beach is in Orange County.
Yeah, he's right.
I can see you. Yes.
Oh,
Great. Good for you.
What? Why is it peeking out?
Because I have it tied up.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I didn't see it today.
She's a creeper.
What? Sorry. I'm annoyed right now.
Why are you
I
annoyed?
don't know why.
What happened?
No, she sent the photo to Jacob so that he could send it to her, and I didn't give her permission to do that, and she took my phone and she did it without us. And I'm really annoyed at her because I don't want other people to have that picture.
Which picture is it?
Ran off.
It's the Lance picture, me and James. I don't like.
What are you doing hiding over here?
You coming with right, Benji? I don't know.
Nice to see you. I see you have your boot off. That's,
Yeah, I got
that's
a
exciting.
brace though. Still can't run.
Aww.
But at least you're not.
I still have like 10 pounds on my foot.
That's right.
I guess I'll just do that.
How about a little test?
Test, test.
Well, is it on? Do you know?
It's on.
It's
All
on.
right. How's she doing? Is she redlined?
Test, test.
Yep, we're good.
All right.
It's the same settings as last week, so.
Okay.
Awesome. I got a bunch of texts like, I can't come to your class today. I'm like, it's okay. So it might be just us. Huh.
The wrong deck. You are telling me. And then this thing was fading in and out, by the way, or you're blurry right now.
Why isn't?
No, it's when you just walk past.
Yeah, I know. I had it focused.
Mama,
Yeah,
can
babe.
you take my bottle home with you for something?
I think so, but I'm just going to be putting it in the car because I'm going to the airport.
What'd you say, Jacob?
We might need those lights on. Is that okay?
The lights on?
Yeah, is that okay?
Sure.
No.
Hey, Scott, it's missing my title and everything.
Okay.
Did you do something?
All I did was open out of make sure I'm on the right one. There's no title on this one either, though. I've seen only some.
There should be. I mean, there was. I had it on there.
We used.
I don't know why that doesn't have a title.
Ah. I used this OneDrive coffee conversations today at 12:26 was the last time it was
Can you
up.
go to the PowerPoint? Where is it? Yeah, that's not. I hope I didn't lose anything else.
Well, let's look.
I don't know if I would know it.
Do you want me to go back to a previous version?
The,
Version history on the desktop.
I, thank you. What was that?
You can do the same thing on this one.
Okay. Hey, did you go into your sister's phone? On her phone? Without permission?
She's done it to me.
Hey, without permission?
She's done it to me.
Okay, so how does that work? So when someone has done it, you're like, oh, then I should too?
I don't know. It's just I wanted a picture and
You have to ask for permission.
she's done it to me though, so I thought it was fine. If she does it, then it's fine, right?
Okay, is that the picture of their hands?
Yeah.
That is so weird
funny.
and cringy.
So funny.
I mean, but you think it's funny. She doesn't. You know that. I think you knew what you were doing.
What?
Who did you send it to?
I sent it to Jacob because I wanted to get it to me.
Oh my gosh. Then you should have sent it to me.
You wouldn't have sent it to me. You're like, no, be nice to your sister.
You're kind of in trouble right now.
Why?
Because you know better.
Plus, if I didn't send it to somebody who sent it right away, then she would have deleted it and I wouldn't have gotten it.
Did you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
What are you going to do about it?
I don't know.
Go figure it out with her. Retribution for poor.
I want to stay.
Love you. I know. We don't get to see each other on Wednesday nights anymore.
I know.
That was fun.
That was fun. I wish I could have been there for the graduation.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah. So fun.
I was so blessed.
Remember your
Everybody-
girlfriend? Like you went with a friend who needed.
Blessed by all these people all
Nice.
over.
That is
60
so awesome.
people, and I probably met most of them.
Oh my.
Some of them, exchange numbers. So if I'm in Washington, I can visit. If I'm in Minnesota, if I'm in New Zealand.
Oh, that's so fun. And that was with the Tubbs, wasn't it?
Yes, the
Yes.
Tubbs and the Simmons.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that
It
drew
was
me.
so
I want to hear more, but I have to do this.
No, I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you. And I want to, I wish I could stay.
I know.
You only do it the...
It's usually the third Sundays of every month, and go after this month, it's going to be the second Sundays.
Okay.
Because we want
Then
to
I'm
switch
going
it
to
up a
put
little
it
bit.
on the calendar so that
Yeah.
that way...
Right at 12:30. Usually we have food. Pilar was sick today, but so you can just come.
It's an Yeah, because, you know, my sweet little dog.
I
she's
know.
Still,
She is
she's
so
that-
You're like, but still a puppy. Hey,
still a
Mama.
puppy. She's all...
How are you? Good. How are you?
I barely heard about this yesterday.
Oh.
And then Sue asked me, and I was like, yeah, I'll go.
We've been doing it for, gosh, like 8 months now. We've been doing coffee conversations for a year, but we've been doing this path.
Do you do it the same time as the...
We're doing it long before. But we are going to move it starting next month to the second Sunday instead of the third because of the class.
Oh, okay.
And originally when we set up the calendar and the timing, hey, Robin, the second Sunday was the bring your own lunch. So we definitely didn't want to do it at that time because a ton of people want to do that. And, you know, all right.
We don't do bring our own lunch anymore. We removed it for convenience purposes. By the way, you thought maybe a bar?
No, Susan,
All right, you want me to get you a tea or?
no, I'm good.
Look at me, I'm ready to go.
Ken, Lori left this money for me for Sue, but I don't want to forget to give it to her.
Oh. From Mark. Oh, Lord.
Hey, Brenda.
Which is one of the Hebrew months. So that's what this series is about that we do every month as we talk about the parts and pieces that God has already made available to us so that we're in time with his seasons and his cycle, the things that he wants to do within a month. So the title of this month is Radiant Healing is in Your House. So healing is, for this month, is different than miracles. So this is miracles, this is about healing. Those of you that haven't been here before, I think it's just you guys. You all have been to, okay, so this is why it's really important that we think anyway to align ourselves with God's seasons and timing is because when we do it, these are the things as far as a benefit that happen is one, we strategy. So we start to see how God wants to bring forth in our life in a approach. And then you get the revelation. So now when you're in sync with what he's doing for that month, you receive additional revelation. And then there's synergy. I always share with people that, you know, one of the things before I started to understand God's timing and his seasons was that I would sometimes do things outside of time. And have you ever done that? Hard. And then I also experienced a ton of affirmation because I would look back at times in my life and see that I was trying to push something forward, for example, that it wasn't the time, that's not what God was doing that month. And so there was a ton of affirmation of like, wow, what I experienced then is exactly what he was doing. Nothing had gone wrong. So it was really powerful. Let's see here. And then these are just the parts and pieces. We call them the prophetic to us. So it's things like the seasons. There's 4 seasons, 12 months, the 12 tribes of Jacob, the 12 gates of Jerusalem, Bible stories and scriptures, obviously, historical events. The Bible is very historical. The constellations, so that is the signs in the stars and the sky, not astronomy. And then also the body. So there are energetic fields in our body that align with what's actually happening in the Word. The Hebrew letters are something that we dive into. Typically there's a letter that's associated with a month and it comes from the stories in the scriptures. So we dive into that a little bit. And then the gemstones. So I don't talk a lot about gemstones, but there is an alignment with stones as it relates to the Hebrew months and what God wants to do. And we know that this is a prophetic piece, and it's actually biblical because we know that the ephod, right, that the priests wore in the Old Testament had all of the stones on it. So those stones align with the tribes that also align with the months. And it was a very mystical thing, right? The stones actually lit up and actually had power and energy. So here we go. All of these things together give us a really in-depth understanding prophetically of what God wants to do each month, and it helps us to move into the timing. So our response is always the most important, right? We can learn a lot of stuff, we can hear all the information, but information does not translate to transformation. So our response is always the most powerful, and it's things like this: reading the scriptures, right? So when we hear these things, like, move forward with it, right? Meditation, so meditating on the word, meditating on what God's saying to you, even to the I guess maybe the level of if you've received a prophetic word, like meditating on that. We've got declarations as an example. That could be our response. Prayer, journaling, imagination and visioning, leveraging the prophetic words that we've received, inner healing, as well as just thought work. Really just holding those thoughts captive as you're starting where the healing is for this month. You might want to just be really aware of your thought life around that area. So this is just a short list of the different places where we get our sources from. So it's everything from the Bible to some of the portions that are more like Hebraic in nature, so the Midrash and the Talmud, and then also websites like Chabad.org. So these are Jewish roots websites in different places. And then this is just a reminder. I have a couple slides here to remind us of God's blessing cycle. So his cycle is always to break up, break out, cross over, and then possess. And then he'll start the process over again. So we see this throughout the year. We see a mini cycle within a month even. So we can have an opportunity to break up, break out, cross over, and possess, and harness everything that he wants to do in a month. And I have highlighted crossover because that's really where we are in the overall yearly cycle. We're still in the place of crossing over. And how many of you know that in the Old Testament they crossed over a lot, like the Jordan, right? Like they're back and forth, back and forth. And the crossing over is traditionally in a place where there's war, right? So we're warring for what we're going to possess. We're warring for taking over new territory. So this is really a season of spring, and it's a season of war.
For right now, Jody?
Yes. Yep. We're in the third month of spring.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because I've noticed
Or sorry. Yes. Sorry. It's the second month of spring. Next month closes spring, and it's a really awesome month. Because you're moving right into possess, and it's like the abundance of God.
Yeah, I like to possess.
Yeah, I know. We really wish we could skip the crossing over, right? Like that is not our favorite. And you know, I know for myself that God really wants us to learn how to cross over well, right? Hey, Sue. And so it is important to understand how to war well. And that is something that we learn through his seasons and his cycles. Does anybody have questions so far? I see some faces going, this is some new information.
Yeah, and I love when you're showing and emphasizing that each one of them is containing the promises and I sense like the electricity of the Holy Spirit for those particular times.
Agreed. It's like the atoms in your soul, your being, just know, like they you know, it's the lighting up. Yep, and he just us. So this is also just a precursory slide of just reminding ourselves that many times our limits are really aligned with the past and expectations we carry. So just, that's just kind of in the forefront as we move into it's just reminding ourselves that anytime we come up against limiting beliefs, they're typically based out of past experiences. And God always wants to take care of that, right? And just move that out of our lives. We also know that miracles get blocked by limitations. So when we're limited by what's possible, then God doesn't always get to show up like with his full potential through us. We create from the future. When I work with clients on the coaching side, there are definitely times where it's a struggle for the what would it look like to do this thing in the next month. And so many times the way we're wired, our brain goes back to what we've done before to try to figure out how to do the new thing. And God's like, no, I'm doing a new thing. It will never look like what's in your rearview mirror, right? Like there's parts of it that we take that are wisdom and nuggets and pull it forward, but the way we create is to envision a future of Jesus and the possibilities of him doing the thing, right? So another reminder here is that your life moves in the direction of your most dominant thought, right? So, yeah. So if there's any part of your life that isn't moving in the direction that you'd like to see it, you probably have to look at your thoughts that are going on about that area of your life. And if you're not experiencing what the Bible promises, you're probably not doing the things you're being instructed to do. And so that just goes back to obedience, not out of a slave mentality, but that in the obedience comes the blessings. And we get the blessings at the rate of our obedience. So we want to be quick to be obedient, so we're quick to receive the reward and the blessing, because he loves to reward us. Amen. He's good God. So here we are at the month of Iyar. Yay, we're finally here. That's how you spell it, Iyar. Cap last month here. So this is just the high level of last month, which was the month of Nisan. And that month was a time of redemption and freedom. So it's the beginning of the spring season, the first month of spring. And it's the Exodus. So the Israelites are being brought out of Egypt. And so it's a season of stepping out of bondage. That was the start of last month. So that sounds amazing, right? To me, it's kind of like the idea of courage. Courage sounds amazing. Actually having to apply courage to a situation, it's not amazing. It's not until you're on the other side of the thing that you're like, we did it. I'll look at the courage that I had to have. It's kind of the same thing. So this last month might not have felt amazing, even though you were getting the opportunity to step out of bondage. Because, opportunity, because, think about that. Even from an energetic level, anytime we start to move atmospheres or change our thinking, there will be resistance. So when we're moving into crossing over, there are so many forces at work that do not want that to happen, right? And we need to be footed, right, and move forward in Jesus, pushing that and kind of the light, like pushing the darkness, right?
It sounds kind of almost scientific, though, because a season of stepping out of bondage, and there are so many different bondages
Absolutely.
to step out of, so that's kind of interesting. It could be also depressing.
But it's this real revelation, right? Like this is what I'm crossing over from to the new, right? So we want to leave behind. Last month we really focused on leaving behind any emotions that have held us back. So like hopelessness, that would have been like a prevailing emotion that wanted to creep up last month. And then it's an intentional turning back. So with every thought, action, and behavior, that's what you're going to notice as kind of a common thing for spring. I mean, it's a common theme all the time, but especially in spring because you're in the modality of crossing over. So when you're crossing over, like you're fighting that resistance, right? It's not, you know, a walk in the park necessarily, because the crossing over was always to war. So here's a high-level overview. The name Iyar is actually an acronym, and it comes from Exodus 15:26, and it is the acronym for I am the Lord your healer. So it's all about Jehovah Rapha. So this is really the essence of the month is healing, because that's his name, right? I'm your healer. It's also a month of connecting. So it's connecting physical healing with spiritual redemption, which is, so the physical healing, when he brought them out of Egypt, he said, I'm going to heal all of your illnesses, right? And then at the end of this season, they received the Torah. So this part, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, I'll get to it actually. So that's what that second bullet there says, the exodus of Egypt to the reception of Torah, which is for next month. And then on the 16th of Iyar, which is this month, is when manna started to fall. So he provided for the needs, and it became a place where the physical nature of their body had sustenance, and it connected them to the spiritual. Light and radiance are coming from you, so that's something to keep in mind this month, that is the potential that we have more than some other months, and that we kind of focus ourselves we work to secure rest and know that I am your God. And what that means to us is that when the Israelites left Egypt, they knew that they were God's people, but they didn't know God. Like, they didn't really have context for him. It had been generations of not hearing about him and only having maybe 3 or 4 stories of Abraham. They didn't have the Torah, so nothing was written down. And so everything was oral communication, and it was really limited. They've been in slavery for so long, right? So they understood that they were the people of God, but they didn't understand the nature of God. And that is our work this month, to understand and know him, that he is who he says he is.
Is the Iyar representing I am?
Yes, so I didn't put up the Hebrew letters there, but it is all part of that. Like, there is a little bit of like the alphabet almost matches ours, so yes. Mm-hmm. All right, so this is just a snapshot. So we're in spring, and when we're talking about understanding the times, the first month of spring, which was last month, Nisan, the Israelites came out of Egypt. And then at the bottom there, the third month, which is Sivan, next month, is when they arrive at Sinai and the Torah is given. So right in the middle is where we're placed right now, which is the month of Iyar, the second month of this spiritual year. So it's a month of transition and geographical change. Remember, we're crossing over, so we should experience some geographical relocation in our own lives. Now, I don't know if that's physical or spiritual. Hopefully both, maybe. And then God wants to reveal covenant secrets this month, and he wants to teach us his nature. That's what he did this month for the Israelites. So he took them out of Egypt, and he did a bunch of stuff this month, and we'll talk about it, where he revealed secrets, and he shared his covenant nature and parts and pieces of him. So that's what we get to look forward to. So in Nisan, it was a reconfirmation of the covenant at Passover, because Passover happened last month during Nisan. This month is really where we partner with him so he can reveal the secrets of his nature and covenant. And then next month, which is Sivan, so we're linking into Sivan, is when he brings us to a whole new level of Pentecost, because Pentecost happens next month in the month of Sivan. So we're in a place right now where we're connecting Passover to Pentecost. And so it's that journey in between, which is just such a sweet opportunity. All right, so here is the wheel of this month. We try to use it each month so that we can spread deliverance. The name Iyar also means radiance. So this is a time when we are radiating his light, or we have the potential to. The blessing is disease prevention. Yes, I have a question.
On that topic of Pentecost, we spoke this morning about the Gregorian calendar and the Hebrew calendar not being aligned. It was mentioned today that today is Pentecost Sunday, but that's on the Gregorian calendar. So Pentecost Sunday is next month in Savan, which will take place in what, early June, late May?
We're on day 27 out of 50. So like in about 25 days.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have the date off the top of my head.
Sorry,
No.
more revelation for me there, and I wanted to make sure I understood clearly.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
It's a great actually, it's a great point to make that, you know, when the calendaring was changed, it wasn't from God. You know, the intention was to create a perversion, right? Because when we come out of alignment with God's timing, then we really, without someone telling us or sharing information or going and looking for ourselves, we're kind of left to just whatever has been established. And we know that that calendar came from a place of political prowess, right? As well as really pleasing the pagan and pagan gods, because each day of the week is named after a pagan god. And then bringing the true Sabbath, which was always Saturday, into Sunday, so that the working relationship could now be managed instead of what God said to do, right?
It's not Pentecost Sunday?
I mean, it is on the Gregorian calendar. It is not according to God, because it's not the Hebrew calendar. Yeah, right? Exactly. So it's known as the month of great beginnings, healing, and a new order and a new alignment. So just keep that in mind as you're working through your month here. So I'm going to start at the top with the really dark brown. So the area of healing this month, our potential, what we have access to, is healing in our thinking. And this is really around deep emotional pain. A lot of times in the Bible, it'll be referred to as bitterness or unforgiveness, but the true Hebrew literal translation is deep emotional pain. And so in the Americas, in the Western aspect, we use bitterness and unforgiveness, which we talk a little bit, I think, in the Western Christian world of roots of bitterness. And we know that comes from deep emotional pain. So in this month, think about that. When you're crossing over, you probably have to shed deep emotional pain to really possess what's available and already set apart for you. So it's in our thinking. It's at an emotional level. It's emotional pain. Maybe our words today would be called trauma. I'm not sure, right? And this is an area where God wants to heal this month.
Do they use the bitterness seasonings or something like that?
Oh, like the horseradish that they do on the Passover plate. I forget what it's called. It starts with an S. Shavu.
Yeah, I do not remember that. But it seems like there's something always bitter or very hot.
Yes. I know that when we do Passover, that's one of the items on the Seder plate, and it's remembering the bitterness that they were delivered from out of Exodus, or out of Egypt, the Exodus, yeah. So the action needed to really apprehend all that's available this month is really listening to God and get to know Him better. So it is an absolute invitation to really know Him at a new level. Not just what you already have, but to go deeper and receive that revelation. Because remember, the next season, the next month, is the month of Savan when they receive the Torah. Torah is always revelation. So we're kind of doing the work this month to receive and possess what's going to be a massive amount of revelation. So the warfare for this month, and makes sense, right? The enemy is at work. Is that we want to guard against distractions or being rattled by temporary circumstances.
I think I got those two yesterday.
But no, right? Keep it in your, the back of your, mind there that, as the month kind of unfolds, there's going to be circumstances that are probably going to want to rattle you, and you just need to remind yourself that they're temporary and that your revelation is on the way. It's going to be fine. The revelation is on the way. The prevalent emotions for this month are all around redemption. So anything that has to do with the redemption, we have access to that. The tribe for this month that's been highlighted is the tribe of Issachar. So it's the tribe of understanding the seasons and the times, which makes sense because they're in this place of crossing over. And crossing over, because it's war, you really want to have your ear, right, to God's mouth. You want breath to breath, right? And you want to make sure that you are understanding the seasons and the times because, you know, if he says go right and you go left, you're like, darn it, you know? So that's why you're really leaning into what he's saying. This is a month to set you up for the year. And so it's actually a really profound month out of all of the months. And so the Issachar, for example, when Issachar was born, Leah named him Issachar, and it means he will bring a reward. So it goes back to then full circle. Everything that we do this month is attached to a reward from God. Our body part is the right kidney, and I apologize, I'm missing the action there. We'll come circle back. The letter for this month is from the Hebrew alphabet is the Vav, and the Vav is a pictogram of a man connecting heaven to earth. So it's really the essence of us, our soul. And then the constellation is the Taurus, the bull. And so this is a representation of the physical strength, plowing the land to secure a place of rest. So it's the work that we do this month really at a soul level, so that deep emotional pain and other things that are there that actually secures the rest which is coming. The holiday for this month that shows up in Iyar is the second Passover. And I have here counting the Omar because it's not an actual holiday, but it's a spiritual practice. So I just want to talk about it a little bit with everybody because it's really a benefit. And if you ever get to next year this month, I would recommend doing it. The potential next year this month, I would recommend doing it. The potential blessing that we could receive for this month is disease prevention. Think about that. So this is a month where it's not highlighted for miracles, but it's highlighted for healings and like a preventative maintenance. So as we dive into the soul work, like this actually is the place, the foundational place that can now like set the stage for diseases to not take root. I remember looking through some data points. I thought it was really interesting that the CDC is now, especially after COVID, is now basically communicating that we should be taking care of our mental health the same way we should take care of our physical bodies. So just like we used to, maybe the saying was, you know, exercise 30 minutes a day. Like now the CDC is releasing stats and best practices of things that we should be doing every single day because from our mindset and being mindful actually allows or disallows disease in our body. And their stat is something like, I want to say it's like 99 point something % of all diseases come from stress. And stress is just a reaction to emotional response, right? So, so just thinking about that, I felt like that was really, really profound that as we manage our emotional response at the thought level, it has a rippling effect in our physical body, which is also quantum physics, right? When we meditate on something, it actually comes into the natural, collapses, and we get to have it.
Jody, you know, but the thing is, they didn't know that lemons and grapefruit could heal COVID. They're giving the people all of these shots. We have a lot of stuff that's growing
That's right.
up from the ground
Yep.
that can hinder a lot of diseases that are coming up.
I'm sure, like,
So, you know, they need
Did not know. I don't think they didn't know. They didn't tell us
they didn't share it.
because
That's my take on that.
Okay, well, no, that
But you're
sounds
right.
good. If that's money they were going after, then yeah. Because I didn't pay any attention to them anyway. I never got a shot. I got my grapefruits and lemons.
But you know, the disease prevention, like being able to stop things in their track because we're addressing it here, is a really big deal. All right, so this new month's focus is we want to seek out how we're to connect this month, which really determines the course of the rest of the year. Which, you know, sometimes when I learn these things and I understand more, I know that God is an orderly God and he does things in process, but it just floors me sometimes of the level of detail and to what extent he would actually already have like planned out my year in a way, right? Like my response gets to be anything every month, but he's already decided these are the things he's doing every month. And when I step into and say, okay, it sounds a little like I don't know what, but I'm gonna focus in right now to really understand this month where you want to work in me spiritually, so that throughout the year I really get to the end of the year and I have that success of that overcoming, that victory, because that's really what I want, is I want more fullness of him. Yeah, so this month links the month of redemption, which was last month, to next month, Sivan, which is a month of giving. So again, we're in the middle right now of the crossing over between redemption and the giving. We want to look and observe to find the place of improvement so that your strength can manifest and increase. And that's what, when we talk about the spiritual practice of counting the Omer, has a lot to do with, is that you're actually looking and observing yourself and actually submitting it to the Lord and saying, okay, what do we want to work on this year? Like, what does this look like? Because I really want to be able to get to that place of crossing over and then possessing. And it's a cleansing of our consciousness. So this is really, the counting of the Omer is really taking a look at all of the divine attributes of God within our own consciousness. And so we're aligning the window of our mind with the window of heaven so that we can receive the revelation, which again is what next month is all about, because it's the giving of the Torah. And then lastly, natural healing. Big focus of the month. It's not the same as miracles, but it's really that we don't need to strive for healing because it should manifest itself this month by the looking of the inward, the working with the Lord on the thoughts, and really identifying where do we want to cleanse ourselves from a mental perspective. We should see that translate right into the body, the physical. So here's the tribe of Issachar. He will bring a reward. Here's just some high-level information that I felt like was really helpful. They were always they were always the tribe that understood the seasons and the times. They were the tribe that knew the Torah pretty much inside and out. I believe, if I remember correctly, when David would go to war, he would have Judah go first, and then he would always consult with the tribe of Issachar, which was actually a small tribe. So I think the number was 50,000 warriors to every 500 of the tribe of Issachar, because that's all they needed. It was 200 to 500, because the power of understanding God's timing and seasons was just such a big deal. So David would always call for them to make sure, are we doing the right thing and in season? And the three tribes that were positioned together on the east side of the tabernacle was Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. So they were the partners. They always went out first in war, right? Judah went out with praise. And this is really the model for the church, is that Judah goes first with war and worship. Issachar comes with timing linked with Zebulun, which is then supply. Doesn't that just sound like God? He's like, let's do this thing. It's gonna require you to war and worship. And once you do that, I'm gonna tell you the timing, which direction to go, and then I'm gonna give you the supply to make it happen. Right? So Moses blessed Issachar and Zebulun together, so they were linked together. There's a connection there between the two tribes. He said, you're gonna draw out the abundance of the sea and the hidden treasures of the sand. That's why this is a really powerful month, because what we step into this month is linked to the giving and really the abundance of next month, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, and I love that war and worship go together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people think like war has to be this really heavy, like the intercession and the burden, and it could look like worship, just constant worship and praise, you know? Isn't there a song, right, where it says, this is how I war, this is how I fight my battles, and it's all about worship. They must have been onto something, because Judah always went out first. And they were valiant of warriors and worshipers. Okay, so our first theme is covenant secrets. So this is really what God wants to, one of the things he really wants to do this month is, and he constantly did this all throughout this month in the Bible. So during this month of Iyar, again, remember the Egyptians are delivered from, the Israelites are delivered from Egypt, and now they come and they're walking in the wilderness. So everything that happened during Iyar comes from these places. So God had a secret for Moses to heal the bitter waters. You remember that story? So he's relaying secrets to Moses and sharing solutions to things. So that's our potential this month, is to hear God and hear the secrets. God had a covenant promise. It was a key promise. He said, if you listen to my voice, I will keep you well. And that's where the healing comes from, right? I am the Lord, your healer. So that's Exodus 15:26. And then he's had another secret from Moses. And he said, I'll provide meat and bread. Remember, we heard the grumblings from the Israelites, and he sent I don't know if it was pheasants. It was some what was it? What? Quail, thank you, quail. And the manna. So he was Yahweh Jireh, right? Like my Lord provider. And then he had another secret from Moses where he shared Yahweh Nisi, which is the Lord, my banner of victory. And that's when he said, he shared with Moses that praise is a key to victory. So that comes from Exodus 17, when Moses has got his arms up. Do you remember the story? And when, as long as his arms were up in a stance of praise, they were winning the battle. The minute his arms went down, it didn't. So he was revealing a secret that praise is a key to victory. Maybe the only one, I don't know. Right? So he's our healer, provider, and our banner of victory over every enemy. So learning the secrets, it's really simple, right? So it's simple because God reveals secrets to those who seek him, right? So don't go to your neighbor. Don't go to the newspaper. Go right to him, right? So a couple of verses here to kind of bring us back, or bring us to the place of what does it look like to seek him. So with Daniel 21 and 22, chapter 2, wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. So that's what he's going to provide, right, when we seek. And then also to you, granted the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. So when we seek him, we also get the mysteries of heaven and the kingdom. And God wants us to ask him, so he loves to not only, it's almost like the hide and seek game, right? Like the privilege of the kings to find the hidden treasures is that then we get to ask him, right? And it says here in James, as if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask, and it'll be given. So we seek him when we don't understand something, when we haven't received the healing, when we don't understand why it's not lining up with what he said in the Bible, we then need to ask him. And the conclusion that I know from this month is that he actually has extra blessings attached to this month when we follow that formula. He did it for the Israelites all throughout Exodus this month as they were in the wilderness, and he will do it for us. So counting the Omer, just a couple high-level bullets here. It is a yearly spiritual practice. It's 49 days long, I think it is. Yep. Is counting the Omer?
From Passover to Pentecost.
Okay. Yes, Omer, thank you. Yeah, okay, yeah, we were talking about 7 times 7 is 4. Anyway, so it's the whole month of Iyar, which is something to note. So this entire month is always within counting the Omer. That's why it's a very soul level addressing that happens for this entire month. So it starts at the beginning of Nisan and then ends in the beginning of, actually middle of Nisan to the beginning of Sivan. It's a 50-day countdown to Pentecost. So I think if I have it correctly, it's actually 49 days, which is counting, and attach ourselves to the divine attributes of God. So if you ever Google it, we're attaching ourselves to his kindness, to his loving. So there's 7 attributes of his divine character that he's basically lining us up with, you know. So there's like a little scripture and a psalm that you read, and you really just meditate on that for the day and just allow him to reveal the bubblings of where he's like, I want to just put my finger on that one thing right there and heal that, you know. Always at the soul level for this. We contemplate on being created in the image of God with all the divine emanations that we can express. Those are the 7. And then he also heals us during this month as we prepare, just like the Israelites did, to be a fit vessel to receive the Torah. So it's just the fullness of God. Like we already have Jesus, so we're already fit from that perspective, you know, and we've received the Torah. But the fullness of God in us is really that next level, right? We have salvation, but what we're looking for a lot of times is the fullness of living this life today, because Jesus died for more than salvation. So that is the privilege here, is that as our soul gets more healed, the more of him comes in, and we get to push that back out. Radiance, light. All right, and the second theme that is really the predominant theme is the healing. Ooh, do I have it twice?
Yeah, that was theme number 2. You good. Theme number 1 was a moment before.
Oh, but the contents are the same.
Yeah.
God had secret for Moses.
Okay, I'm not really sure. You were both like, huh. And it's probably, I just copied a slide, so it's later on, but we'll get to that. So the letter is Vav for this month, which is the 6th letter. And this is what it looks like over to the right. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Hebrew letters, it's got 3 dimensions to it. So it'll actually be a letter, right, which is here. It has a numeric value, and then it also has a picture that's associated with it. And that's how the Jewish rabbis really receive deeper level revelation within the text of the Torah, the Bible, is because the picture, the number, and then the letters all have to add up and basically confirm one another. And that's how they go, oh, that's God, and that's what he's saying. And it's, I don't know if you guys have ever looked into it, but it's pretty fascinating to see the level of revelation that God provides for us. His detail is majestic. So the meaning here is that it's a hook, a peg, a nail, or a pin, and it's used to secure a dwelling place, right? A dwelling place. It's connection, linking, and a vertical line. Remember we talked about connecting that first month of this season to the next month? So we're in transition right now. The first month was leaving Egypt. Next month is receiving the Torah, so we're in this place where we're connecting things together. The pictogram is a connecting pin, and it's also been identified as a man as a tent peg securing heaven and earth.
Well, I was just going to ask you, wouldn't that be close to representing salvation too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right there. Yep. So we become that vertical line between heaven and earth, right? And I don't know if you know this, but the number 6 represents man. So it is us standing between heaven and earth. And there's some teachings that I know are not of Western thought, but it's all rooted in the biblical Hebrew. And they talk about how we were created and how our expression, we cross over both worlds. So we have the ability, because we're both spirit and physical, so we're the unseen and the seen, which is so different than the angelic. That's why there was so much jealousy for us, because they couldn't believe that we were allowed to do both, that we could interpret the essence of God, naming the animals, right? And giving them physical names. So we had access to both the unseen and the seen, the physical and the not physical, and that is where the jealousy stemmed from. And God said to the angels, Adam, what's so different about Adam is he'll possess greater wisdom than you'll ever have. I'm sure that didn't go over well for some of them, so, as we know.
Especially that one guy.
Yeah, exactly. And all of his friends, you know. So, so just remind yourself of that, of how we've been created this month, and that we really are the connector between heaven and earth, and we get to cross over both realms, and it's such a privilege.
And Jesus became that man to be the link
That's right.
that would accomplish that purpose.
Absolutely. He restored the connection so we can actually have that communion. Mm-hmm.
Now I understand why he was called man. Or son of man.
Yeah.
I never could figure that. Why would they call him man
Yeah.
and son of man?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I get it.
Right. Yay. So the expansion of the letter, just some details here. It's considered to be an extended yod, which is kind of like this nub right here. Okay, and they're just making the distinction there, or calling out the fact that they take the yod and they draw it down. So extending that line, and the yod is always God, so you're just extending God down. The vav adds things together to create unity, so it's used all throughout the letters, and you can see like almost every letter, the essence is this letter, like it's within it, and then also the yod. It can be used as a prefix meaning and before a word, so it has multiple facets to it. Not all of the letters have that. Again, we have multiple facets, right? We could live in the heavenlies, you know, we are citizens of both worlds. And then Yahweh's name is Yod-He Vav-He. So this particular letter is in his name. So it's both the yod, which is what we were just talking about, and then the vav, which is taking the yod and drawing it down. So again, connecting him to us, God to man. And then here's a little bit more, which I thought was good, is that the vav pegs truth and our scrolls to our souls. That's why this month is so important with our soul, is because he wants to take the truths of not only who he is, right, like really knowing him, but also who we are at an identity level. And he wants to literally peg that, stake that, pin that to our soul. So the scrolls of how he's imagined us in heaven before we were even here, right? So we're well equipped then to do the outworking we agreed to do and have in Yahweh. So it's also the stabilizing factor of the sixth dimension. So we've got north, south, east, west, up and down. So we've got that piece of it. We are the bridge, that second bullet. I am the bridge between things that oppose themselves. I am man. So we were intended to bridge the gap between the heaven and the physical. And when the tabernacle of the Almighty is stretched out, I am the peg that holds it in place. So we have the privilege to, again, operate in that way. The security and establishment of Yahweh's word in the earth, it's heaven and the earth connection, and the very heart of his focus is really what kind of the essence of Vav is. So it's the establishment of his word, which we know is Jesus, right? And again, he links us. Go ahead.
Interesting thought that, I don't know if you've already said this, but this is why God chose man, us, to evangelize, to make that, fill that gap. Because we're doing this, and we're creating that vacuum
Yeah,
that needed to be done so that people can come to God.
yeah. And you know what else is fascinating about that is the tribe of Issachar, they were the ones that were mostly focused, because they were so scholarly and rooted in the Torah, of basically conversion. Like bringing people into the fold of who God is, because that's what they carried, basically evangelism. That was like one of the things that if you were to say what gifting would they have along with like the scholarly knowledge of Torah, like they were the most well equipped to do that. Yes, exactly. All right, just two more slides here. We've got the obstacles and pitfalls here for the month. So the first one is not dealing with your soul. So not addressing and taking the time to really deal with your mind, will, and emotions. And this, I just kind of set up like these bullets so that you can kind of walk it out. So your mind is not your brain. The brain is the physical aspect of your body. But the mind, it has to do with your soul. Your brain will resist your mind changing. And that's science. We have neural pathways. And when there are deep ruts in there of thoughts we've been thinking a long time, and then we want to create a new thought, our brain, the body, physical body, actually resists that because it's not efficient to think new thoughts. It's much more efficient to stay in old thought processes, which is part of just the survival mechanisms that were built into us because we want to conserve energy and we don't want to do hard things. We don't want to feel emotions that we don't want to feel. We'd rather stay with even familiar pain than to try on a new emotion sometimes. Yeah. So we think of it like you'll have to remove files from your mind to think correctly.
Defrag.
Yes, exactly. So your brain has these files, you want to remove it, and within the files are the thoughts, so you're defragging the thoughts. Your mind is the thinking process of your heart. So in the Hebrew, like the eyes of my heart is always, it's your thought process, it's your thinking, it's not your actual heart. And it's more at the soul level because it's part of the mind, will, and emotions. And then lastly, if your emotions are messed up, like if they're not in alignment, then you have feelings that are impregnating your thought processes. And that's why it's so important to really be looking at the thought processes because the way you translate or interpret even a circumstance is going to be based on a thought that's hasn't been defragged, right? You're not thinking correctly.
And the whole purpose of having someone that mentors you.
Yes.
Comes into play because of that.
That's a great point.
You need someone who is able to guide you out of the rut that the neurons are firing, those same files being repeated, and they will help you to overstep and go into a new track.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. You need someone to do the MRI.
Yeah.
And know how to read it.
Yeah.
It was one thing to take the picture, but you need someone that knows how to read the MRI
That's right.
and see what has to change.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good analogy. Not addressing any roots of bitterness. So when we were talking about in the beginning how it really is a potential, this month is the potential to address and heal the thinking at the thinking level. So it's the mind, will, and emotions. And some of that is, just really digging in with the Lord on any of that, what we would call bitterness or unforgiveness, but it's really deep emotional pain that's happened in your life. And if you're interested, I've got a worksheet that I have created in the past, and it's around bitterness and unforgiveness, and I'll send it out via email if you guys want. And then I've just got a couple scripture verses there of just like the crying out of receiving the healing. And then murmuring and complaining, right? So, here's some giggling. So think about it. This was the month they were in the wilderness. They did a lot of murmuring and complaining, right? And they really suffered consequences because what God had in store for them was secrets, covenant promises, things like the pillar and the cloud, right? And so they had, and receiving like the man, all of the provisions. And so we have all this access this month, and our response is going to be so important. We open ourselves up for sickness, and Satan loves to just schedule it on our calendar. So when we're murmuring and complaining, we're actually opening a door, right? And that's when the testing comes, and not the kind that's like, hey, let's go to, maybe you'll go to the next level, but it's a little bit more like, now I get access because I have a legal right, says the enemy, because you just did this thing. And it's also the kind of sickness, not necessarily like, when I say sick, it's not always like a cancer, right? But it is the hardening of the heart, right? Just like he allowed with the Israelites that stayed back and the Egyptians, right? Where they couldn't even get to the place of repenting. So it's worse, right? Than some of those illnesses. Like you don't even see that you should be repenting. Like there's no recollection or understanding. And then last slide here. Summary, dun, dun, dun. This is kind of like what you just said. So it's a month to receive spiritual advice, right? So it's a month to get counsel from God. So it's also like if you have good mentors in your life, or if you don't have one, find one. So we're asking the Lord to activate our prophetic voice to get the advice that he has for us. One of the pieces of information that I stumbled on is that this is also a month to be very careful with who you receive advice from. And that is the next bullet there, which is we want to advance during the watch this month. And without getting into too much detail, there are the watchmen in the Old Testament and some of the supplemental teachings, like the book of Enoch. Not all the watchmen are good, right? Some of them are fallen angels, and they're watching to see what you do this month, and we don't want to give them access, right? So a false prophetic voice could corrupt the watchman, and they literally can just steal from you. So if you're listening to the wrong voice, so just dial in on God. Set your watching eye inward and outward. Remember, we're observing ourselves within the context of those 7 dominant aspects of God. Like I said, the kindness, the loving, there's a discipline aspect of him. So you guys can look that up. It's all part of counting the Omer. And it's through self-awareness and effort that we realign ourselves. That is what the counting of the Omer is. So it's not striving. It's about coming into alignment and with God when he says, this is the thing I want to do now. Okay, we're going to look at this thing right now. And then letting go of anything toxic and false. And the last is the trust and turn to heaven for your sustenance, just like the manna. Like that should be kind of our picture in our mind when it comes to the healing. They received healing through the provision, like it was already there. Circumstances are going to come. You don't need to be knocked off your heels, right? And remember, just turn back and trust that, of course, it's my revelation is coming, and I have the sustenance that I need for today. All right? Bread for the day, right? Doesn't mean we get it's a stockpile because we didn't with the manna, right? So God promises the healing and the provisions for today, and that's sometimes how we're going to have to walk day by day in this month. All right. Does anybody have questions or thoughts? Go ahead.
I held on to the very end. You were earlier talking about this month of Iyar.
Iyar. Mm-hmm.
Iyar was the month of struggling to connect between Nisan and Sivan, right? When finally the day of Pentecost. So in this time of struggle, or just holding on to the truth that
Yeah, resisting the old. Yep.
You're still at the mill. Curious thing to bring up, but I think that each one of us spiritually can be going through a month of Iyar, and it doesn't even have to be in this allocation of Iyar. Sometimes we're in different places in our lives throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
So could it be possible too that I could say to someone, you are going through a period of Iyar, but
Yes.
but Sivan
Yes.
is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible? Because I look at people and they're
Yeah.
going up and down and struggling,
Right.
and then things get better, and sometimes they have to reposition themselves and
Yeah.
that whole thing. But it's not just in this period.
That's right.
Here.
So if God's blessing cycle is breakout, breakthrough, crossover, and possess, that's not only for the year, but we can see that same full cycle within a month or within a week, within a day. So it's just the way God does things, and we attach time to it, but it's not always that way, right? So does that make sense? Yeah.
That's where I was.
Yeah. So it can be both. Not either or, but both. We can go through the whole cycle within a month, or we could be just in crossing this month, right? Just a piece of the cycle. So yeah. I'd love to see all happen. What'd you say?
That's so good.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's encouraging, right? Yeah.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 months. Okay, I struggle with high blood sugar.
Okay.
So I take meds for diabetes. 3 months ago, it finally went to a improved level, and so now again this month. I'm struggling. I gotta keep it low. So I was happy to hear all of this because it gives me encouragement.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Get it down.
Huh?
How'd you get the blood pressure down?
I went cold turkey. A month. You
Just
know,
quit,
cut out all
Renee,
the,
just quit.
junk food, the French fries.
It's blood sugar.
She said she quit cold turkey, and she just like cut it. Yeah, a lot of willpower and self-control.
Salad.
And reliance on the Lord, right?
Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Father,
That's
for
the first